is any other media member that you listen to going to mention the idiotic, divisive, incredibly stupid tweet that LeBron James sent yesterday afternoon, which is designed to tear us apart even more than we already are, as we are in the midst of an incredibly divisive era in the United States? And I think what LeBron did on social media is all too common of what occurs in our modern day society. So LeBron James went on Twitter yesterday afternoon, and he said, he posted a photo of a Columbus, Ohio police officer, and he said, "You're next," with an hourglass beside it, hashtag accountability. The picture is of a Columbus, Ohio police officer who was responding to an incredibly dangerous knife attack that was going on, with one woman holding a knife poised to potentially stab to death another woman when a police officer arrives, yells for her to drop the knife. She does not do it, and he opens fire. It all happens in a split second. You can see a still image of this woman holding a knife in her right hand, lunging in the direction of a cowering and unarmed potential victim that may have been moments away from dying herself innocently as she was stabbed to death by this other woman. Police officer arrives, pulls out his gun, demands that she drop the knife. She does not. She's lunging towards the other woman, attempting to stab her. Police officer fires and kills the woman holding the knife in her hand. You can go watch this video yourself if you would like to. Fortunately for the officer, he was wearing a camera, a body camera, and we can see exactly from his perspective what was going on in this incident. If anything, the officer in this case is a hero for saving the life of a woman. I was just talking about how race really shouldn't matter. Police officer is white, and the two women who are fighting are both black. The woman who was about to stab the other woman is black. The woman whose life was potentially saved is black. Shouldn't matter, because the police officer in an ideal world should respond the exact same way if this were two Asian people or two Hispanic people or two white people. LeBron posts this officer, who is otherwise a private citizen, post his photo to his 50 million followers, says "you're next" in all caps, puts up the hourglass, and then says hashtag accountability. LeBron has made that police officer a marked man. He's also doing the exact opposite, which should be occurring, which is praising that officer for saving someone's life in an incredibly difficult situation. The National Fraternal Order of Police responded to LeBron James's tweet. The National Fraternal Order of Police is the largest police union in the United States. They represent over 350,000 police officers in this country. LeBron James deleted the tweet. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the National Fraternal Order of Police tweeted, "At King James, with his vast resources and influence, should educate himself and, frankly, has a responsibility to do so on the facts before weighing in. This is disgraceful and extremely reckless. The officer saved a young girl's life. No amount of gaslighting will change that fact." Let's think about this for a minute. If that girl had been stabbed to death in that fight, most of us would have never heard about it, because it just would have been another murder in another city in America. 99.9% of you who are listening to me right now would have never known that it happened. because murder is so common in this country that the only time we focus on it at all is when the media can play the race card. If we eliminated every single murder of a black person by someone other than a black person, that is, if we took away every murder of any black person by an Asian, a white, or a Hispanic person in this country, do you know what percentage of black murders would still be occurring? 93% of them. The vast majority of murders in the United States are black victims killed by other black people. Almost never gets a word of attention anywhere in this country. If we eliminated every police shooting that has ever occurred in any year, 99% plus of all black murders would still be occurring. The media uses race to divide us, to sensationalize stories, to increase the amount of distrust across this entire country. If you only followed the stories that are brought to us by the media and by our athletes, you would think that if we eliminated stories like Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, that murder would cease to exist as a major issue in this country, when the reality is police officers are the number one protectors of white, black, Asian, and Hispanic lives when we are in danger in this entire country. I'm not saying police are perfect. They aren't. They're human. And when they commit crimes, they deserve to be prosecuted. But you're already seeing what exactly happens when police are not allowed to do their jobs in this country. Guys, it gets almost no attention. Do you know that 2020 set a record for most of our lives for the largest increase in murders? Because police weren't allowed to do their job because they were demonized. And when police don't do their job, do you know what happens? People who are criminals slide in and take advantage of that situation. It is a monster, huge, ridiculous world that we have created where we are demonizing police and trying to make them the cause of all of America's ills. And that's what LeBron James is doing. If the American sports figures and sports media really wanted to make the biggest difference and make police and the people that they are trying to protect have a better relationship, do you know what the best advice that could be given by every athlete and media member would be? Comply with the police. It's what I tell my kids every single day. It's what my parents told me. If a police officer tells you to do something, do it. I'm a lawyer. I can tell you, if you are told to do something that violates your constitutional rights, you will get your day in court. You will have the opportunity to make that argument. Do you know when you don't get the opportunity to make that argument? When you don't comply with a police officer instruction and that interaction turns violent. That is the underlying story of almost every police shooting that occurs anywhere in this country. Instead of immediately complying and following the instruction of officers, people either fight with them, refuse to comply, or like in this situation in Columbus, Ohio, a police officer suddenly shows up in the middle of a fight, sees in a split second a woman with a large knife in her hand, poised to shove it into the other woman and potentially take her life, and has to make a split-second decision and decides to protect the unarmed woman and shoot the armed woman. And for that, LeBron James says that person deserves to pay the consequences. I think it's the exact opposite. I think we should be praising that police officer in Columbus, Ohio, who saved that woman's life. And I think LeBron James should be ashamed, and so should all the media that have been carrying LeBron James's water for so long instead of holding him accountable for his 50 million Twitter follower platform and actually making him take 30 seconds to watch the video and see that that officer saved a life as opposed to taking one without any justification at all.